and welcome to the show where myself, the Dr. Tech Show, where myself, Pauline Roche and Sweyn Hunter, and sometimes guests guide you to the world of online communications and digital inclusion in a show which was the brainchild of the late, great, and sadly missed John Popham, who was internet guru and did live streaming and all that entails long before everyone else was doing it and made it popular. So let's check on the weather. Sweyn, how's the weather where you are today?
Well, I'm in Orkney, in Kirkwall as usual, and it's a very poor day. It's cold and it's raining, and after a lovely weekend, it's a bit of a disappointment.
Oh dear. Yeah. Well, here in Birmingham, we had blue skies at the weekend, and now we've got cloudy skies. But it's been nice, and I had managed to sit outside and eat my breakfast outside
Oh,
this
lovely.
morning, so that was nice to be able to do that. Porridge, good bowl of porridge to set me up for the day, which was very nice. So it's been an interesting couple of weeks, and we've had elections and lots of changes in local government across the whole of the country, really. So that'll be interesting to see how that works out. And anyone who's interested in digital inclusion and online communications and local government, we'd love to hear from you about how things are with you. If you want to come on the show and talk to us about things that are going well in the community or things that have changed, we'd love to hear from you. So please do get in touch with us. So let's get on to some of the dates we've picked up over the last while. Sweyn, do you want to lead off with that, with the first one?
Okay, I can do. The first one that that we found is Maternal Mental Health Month, which is May. And this is an initiative that coincides with Mental Health Awareness Week, which is, I think, this week or next week. But anyway, each May, the spotlight is shined on maternal mental health, with the whole month being Maternal Mental Health Month. And yes, as I said, it coincides with the Maternal Mental Health Week, which also takes place during May. In many countries, as many as 1 in 5 new mothers experience some type of perinatal mood and anxiety disorder. And these illnesses frequently go unnoticed and untreated, often with tragic and long-term consequences to mothers, children, and fathers alike. So you can get involved in the chat around maternal mental health this month by using the hashtag Maternal Mental Health Month.
Great. It is very important to note that, as women often get the brunt, I suppose, of looking after children when they're born. I'm sure fathers also take a lot of the weight as well, but mothers particularly feel, I think, responsible. So
well, the whole physical business of giving birth as well can have effects on mental health as well as physical health. So it's important to be addressed.
Yeah, and if anybody knows of any digital things that helped digitally getting online and stuff around that, we'd love to hear from you. If we can share with other people what helps, we're always interested to hear that. Thanks.
So the next awareness, it's also the whole of May. It's May Month, it's called, and it's to do with blood pressure, because blood pressure is the #1 contributing risk factor for global death. It causes strokes, heart attacks, and other cardiovascular complications. 10 million lives are lost each year needlessly due to raised blood pressure, because only half of people with the condition know about it. And if these deaths can be prevented if we know about them, and the real tragedy is that we just don't know when we have elevated blood pressure. So we have May Measure Month, or MMM. It's a global awareness campaign led by the International Society of Hypertension. Hypertension is the posh name for high blood pressure. And that represents the world's leading scientists, clinicians, healthcare providers, and allied healthcare workers, all with common interest in high blood pressure research. It was launched in 2017 in May to put the spotlight on increasing access to blood pressure screening as potentially the most effective way to reduce its adverse toll on health. And in more than 100 countries, volunteers have screened people in cities, towns, and villages as part of the largest free blood pressure screening exercise the world's ever seen. Right. And all participants left knowing their blood pressure, and anyone who registered as hypertensive or having high blood pressure was given advice about what they needed to do next.
Mm.
So there's the website there to look at all the details, and it's a very worthwhile initiative.
Unfortunately, it didn't load on the screen,
Did
Sweyn,
it not?
as you were showing it. So, but we will
Oh,
include the link
yes.
in the YouTube video after the show, so
I
others
think,
can visit that. Yeah, my own
yeah.
blood pressure, I'm more low blood pressure than high blood
Oh,
pressure.
wow.
So yeah,
That has
but
its
I
own
know
problems.
it's good to know. Yeah, it's good to know these things.
Yeah.
Great, a good one. One other thing I picked up, Sweyn, if you don't mind me adding, for May, I realize it's No Mow Month, which you may have heard about. It's to encourage people not to cut their lawns in May. And this is from Plant Life, which is a charity, I think, in order to let wild plants thrive and provide nectar for insects. And they there's an annual Every Flower Counts citizen science survey, a study of garden lawns in the UK, which thousands of people take part in, and the results of that show that there's a radical shift in attitudes towards lawn management. And it says 78.8% of the participants last year did not mow for a month before taking part in the survey, which is an increase from 33.6% in 2019. So people are really stepping up their awareness of nature and how great it is for us. So people who choose not to mow, they said, were rewarded with rare plants. More than 250 wild plant species were recorded by gardeners last year, including wild strawberry, wild garlic, and very rare plants, including adder's tongue fern, meadow saxifrage, snake's head fritillary, and eyebright. And I'm reading this from an article in The Guardian by Helena Horton, who's their environment reporter. Also, many orchids were seen, including the declining man orchid, green-winged orchid, southern and northern marsh orchid, and bee orchid. So it just sounds like, this sounds like a very good thing for all of us to consider. And that those dandelions that we kind of frown at in the garden might actually, if we can let them survive for a month, it does make a big difference. The dandelions, these are some data on them. Despite being outnumbered by daisies 85-1 on a typical 2021 lawn, they produce 9% of its pollen and 37% of its nectar sugar.
Wow.
And so 8 dandelion flowers may produce enough nectar sugar to meet an adult bumblebee's baseline energy needs. So they're really encouraging people to not mow in May.
And let the dandelions grow.
Yeah, and the plants,
else.
and do it less throughout the year, and it just makes such a difference. And as we all know, if the bees don't survive, we don't have a chance of surviving. So we do need to encourage them to keep being there. Thank you.
And we've got, see if I can share the screen properly this time. We've got our event. It's part of a series of regular events that worked this time. Launched by Jackie Taylor, who we had on the show a few weeks ago. And every Wednesday she's launched her Empathy Economy initiative, and every Wednesday she's doing a LinkedIn audio event at 12:30 British time, UK time, and it's all about her ideas for creating the empathy economy, which is based on profit for a purpose. And she'll be answering all the questions about growing a profit for purpose business, and discussing introduction to the empathy economy, what a profit for purpose business is, how you identify your purpose as a business, and how you grow a profit for purpose business as well, and also what the benefits are. And there's three hashtags: LinkedIn audio event, #empathy economy, and #growth strategy. So that's on Wednesday the 11th and every Wednesday at 12:30.
Yeah, I've listened to one of them so far, and it's been good. I think it's this kind of a slow burner thing where you kind of tune in and listen to different people learning about it. And Jackie's very, as we know from having her here on the show, very nice person to have on, and very pleasant. And I think she will encourage more people to learn about this, because we need some kind of alternative to some of the existing work that's out there. So it's good to see you're on top of that. Great stuff. So we don't have a guest today, and but we do have plenty of stories that we have been gathering over the last probably a month or so now, since we had a story-filled session. So we're going to talk about some of the things we've been uncovering, and yeah, if you're listening and you have other stories you'd like to talk about, or if you want to come on the show and tell us what you're doing around online communications and digital inclusion, we'd love to hear from you. We hope to have some of our regular guests on during the year. We may have Paul Clayton on next week if he's available. We'll have Rachel Connells on during the year in the holidays. And at the end of the month, we're going to have Jean McLeod, who's going to talk to us about nursing and digital in that area. So we're looking forward to that. But how for now, we'll go on to some of the stories. And this first one was on the Vodafone website, and it's called Cloud Computing, Everything You Need to Know. And it's not a catchy headline, but I mean, I think people do want to know about cloud still. Some people still don't really understand what it's all about, and neither do I. And I'm sure it's developing as well. So we want to know more about it. So the article says that these days, cloud computing touches most aspects of our digital lives, from the apps we use to Vodafone's mobile network itself. But what is it? So the explanation is, the core idea is, instead of having software installed and running on your laptop, smartphone, or other computing device, it actually runs in a remote data center, a warehouse full of powerful server computers. So it's got nothing to do with clouds as such. It's just a way of expressing that it's not in your physical space, it's somewhere else, and that it's, you can communicate with it when the links are up. And so the article goes on to explain, by running stuff in a remote data center rather than locally on your device, the idea is the experience becomes more convenient, less hassle, and lower cost. And obviously you can access wherever you are. So they give some examples, and one of which is office software. So rather than cough up hundreds of thousands of pounds for programs to create presentations and spreadsheets, you can use a suite such as Google Workspace for free or a low monthly fee. And as with all programs run on your laptop or desktop computer's web browser, rather than being downloaded onto your hard drive, they're always up to date with the latest features and bug fixes, which is good to know. As all the documents are by default saved online in cloud storage, multiple people can work on them at the same time, and that's a capability that's tricky to achieve without running software in the cloud. So you can, rather than plugging into a hard disk, you can subscribe to a cloud storage service such as Google Drive, which you just mentioned, iCloud, Dropbox, or OneDrive. And these services store your files in data centers and deliver them to you as and when you need them. So the advantages are that reputable cloud storage services will back up your files, and something we humans are notoriously bad at. So if you spill coffee all over your keyboard or drop your smartphone down the toilet, you haven't lost everything. And same goes if if your device gets lost or stolen. And also you can access your files from anywhere. So if you get an internet connection somewhere, you can just log into your records, your work, and just work from wherever you are. And I know I found that helpful in the past. Sweyn, how are you on cloud computing? Is it a go-to for you, or do you like local storage?
I like to do both, believe it or not. I do greatly value the bit about being able to work on anything from any device, but when your stuff is in the cloud, because you're accessing it from a computer or a phone or a tablet or whatever, it doesn't really matter. It's still always there. But I do like to have kind of on-site, on my device backup of what's in the cloud. So I suppose I'm backing up what's in the cloud in case I should ever lose access to that service for any reason, whether it stops providing the service it has been doing. I think there have been examples of that. For example, I think Flickr, the photo storage app website, it used to have quite a generous free account allowance, and recently they've withdrawn that. So anybody who hasn't upgraded from a free online cloud storage of their photos to a paid for one is now at risk of losing those photos. There's always that risk in cloud. that the service that you're using closes down or becomes unavailable. So I like to have a local copy, but in terms of convenience and as they say, the sort of first line backup for day-to-day stuff, the cloud is brilliant. It really is.
So if someone was getting started, you know, and looking into this, what advice would you be giving them about you know, finding the balance between local and cloud storage?
I think most people, if you're using a reputable service like Google or Apple, iCloud or whatever, I think the risk of losing access to your stuff is fairly low. But I would just sort of do a copy of some of anything that's really important now and again onto a local device, which is completely under my own control, just to make absolutely certain.
Yeah, good advice there. Okie dokie. So the next item was about delivering online tutorials. A tweet from Tessa Davis, and we kind of just picked out a headline: 6 things I've learned about delivering online tutorials. And we have talked about this before, I think, with Alistair Somerville. Things we're learning because, you know, we're all experts now at delivering stuff online. But we all are seriously, we all are still learning as well, and it's good to kind of compare notes and think about how we can help other people and how what we've learned ourselves. So in no particular order, I think what Tessa has learned is, number one, don't use slides, and I think she does expand on this it's a Twitter thread. I think
it's a thread. Yes, it is.
Yeah. So you got the thread on screen? Okay, so don't use slides was the first one. What did she say about that? Oh yeah, instead look at the learners, show her face and really connect. And that, yeah, I mean, I can relate to that.
This thread is advice aimed at medical people doing presentations, but it applies generally to everyone anyway. It's all good. Yeah. It's all good advice.
Absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I think as far as slides goes, it's handy to have something kind of behind you or beside you, just one word or a picture or something. I think people use pictures maybe more now than they used to do.
No slides. I've implemented a no slides rule because I think slides really just detract from your goal of connecting.
Right, we'll not watch all them, but
no. But if we just go through them, then the second thing was allocate one person to tech, and we can both firmly agree with this one. We've both been at sessions where someone's got lost or not, you know, doesn't know what's going on or is outside the room or whatever trying to get in, and you know, it helps if one person is not too much bothered with what's going on at the event, but you know, is concentrating on making sure everybody's tech is working correctly.
It's just however good you are at running the technology, if you're also trying to run the content of the session, it's really hard to do both well at the same time. Your brain just doesn't quite work in those two different ways. There's things that you have to do while you should be reassuring people, or you're reassuring people while people can't hear you, or whatever. Always have somebody whose main focus is to do the technology, which frees the other person to actually just talk about the subject, which is why people are there after all.
Yeah, and we're not talking about high level coding or sort of, you know, fixing the back end of a machine. It's as is listed on that this screen here now, letting people into the room, creating breakouts, keeping time. You know, she says educators aren't tech geniuses, most of them. So, you know, it's finding the balance, and also just knowing that you give people a better service if you're not worrying about the kind of the technical things that can go wrong and sometimes do, and it's just a much better experience for everybody, really. So
I would go further than she goes here. Even if you are a technical genius, if you're responsible for the content, then let's delegate the technology to somebody else, and also be willing to help others who might need a technical assistant to run the technology for their particular event. There's nothing worse than an event which is otherwise really good being punctuated every 2 or 3 minutes by saying, oh well, now I have to share this, how do I do this?
It runs more smoothly that way, and it's good learning for other people as well, and it gives other people experience. They learn something as they go along. And there are people out there for whom this is their job. So let them get on with it while you get on with the job that you're better at doing as well. That's number 2. Number 3, make sure students do most of the talking. Well, this is a classic one. How many talks have we gone to where they say, oh, there's plenty of time for questions and plenty of time for discussion, and then the speaker actually dominates the whole event. So let's allow some talk. Tessa herself says when medics get into the flow, we can't stop talking. So she's learned that 90% of tutorial time should be students talking, and that the job of the tutors is to get the pitch right so we can simply guide and facilitate. So it's a tutorial, not a lecture. And I can relate to that. And as a chair, often of meetings, I think my job is to make sure that everybody gets a chance to speak. So even the people who seem less eager to speak should get a chance by a good chair saying, has everybody who wanted to say something had a chance? Or no, you've spoken 2 or 3 times now. Perhaps people who haven't spoken so much would like to chip in, or or directly addressing the person. Fred or Jane, I know you've got experience in this area. I'd really like to hear, because it can be if you're not used to it or you're shy or whatever, it can be enervating to try and do that. So it's good to get some encouragement for that. Would you agree with that, Sweyn?
I do, and I think that some people find the whole Zoom online thing quite a barrier to actually piping up and having their say. So it's important to encourage everyone to just get through that and to just speak up anyway, as if they were in a room.
Yeah. That actually reminds me, or makes me think of spotlighting or not spotlighting. On Zoom you can spotlight a speaker in a group so that it's easier for people to see who's speaking and what they're saying. But some people aren't so comfortable with that. They'd like to be in the group. What's your feeling on that? What's your theory?
Oh, I think I would, generally speaking, unless I knew the group very well, I would ask if they minded. And just take a cue from what the group says. It's not something that in a relatively small group that I've used very much, unless somebody is trying to demonstrate something practical that you need to see their hands or something. I think in actual fact it's usually probably better just to leave the group as a group on the screen for most tutorial purposes anyway. I think it's more if you're doing a panel or something that the people, it definitely is useful for some specific things, but there's a risk if you change what's on the screen too quickly or too often, you can leave participants feeling a bit seasick.
Good point. Yes,
less is definitely more.
Okay, so on to number 4 in this list of tips for Zoom. Embrace silence. And this is one I think a lot of tutors have struggled with. Tessa says when most tutors ask a question, they jump in too quickly when nobody answers. They can't bear the excruciating silence. So she sets a timer and watches it tick as she waits for a reply, and it never needs more than 15 seconds. So that sounds good to me as well, that you kind of get a chance to just sit there and think, what do I think about that?
I wouldn't have thought of that one. That's a good one.
Yeah, I can imagine that 15 seconds feels excruciating as you're watching it. But if you get into use and that's how your tutor and your group is going to handle this, then I think that could work quite well. Yeah, we might learn from that, Sweyn.
I was trying to leave a silence there, but it didn't work.
Number 5, yes, aim for engagement with all content. Tessa says we can easily forget. Sorry, if you go back up again there slightly, Sweyn.
Yeah, I'm just switching her video off.
Okay. We can easily forget the purpose of a tutorial is for discussion and tailored learning. So she says, ensure every element is valuable and engaging. That means it's worthwhile to be there live. Otherwise, it could be pre-recorded and in their own time. So if you're having a live tutorial, make sure that it's got good response and you can respond to everybody. I mean, the headline, I'm not sure, aim for engagement with all content. I thought that was more about responding to whatever comes up rather than trying to direct the flow, but There's a bit of that
I think
as well,
she's meaning that if you are going to put something in a tutorial that's online, make sure that it's engaging. I think it's that way around.
Okay, yes, yeah.
For myself, I think that's usually the important and right thing to do, but I think there probably is something to be said for, depending on the group, depending on the purpose of the meeting, there probably is something to be said for occasionally spending a bit of time with no particular direction, just to spend time with each other. But if you are billing it as a tutorial and something to learn from, then obviously what's in it has to work for that. So yes,
absolutely. Okay, is there another
one more?
Okay, number 6, have a timing plan for your tutorial. And she says, we often run over time or don't manage to get all our content in, and this is a real waste. She says, instead, prep a clear plan with good flow. In particular, breakout timings are commonly underestimated, and I can certainly agree with that. Finishing early is better than running late. Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
As a chair, I try and make sure that happens. Even if we start late, people have other things to do and they need to get on with their lives. So there's always something that can be cut, or some person telling a story that needs to be told. Sorry, we don't have time for what you're saying today. It's really important, but we need to move on. Thanks very much. Please do contribute, or write to everybody afterwards and share what you wanted to say.
I think that number 5 and 6 there taken together are really good. I think another thing that's underestimated, she's right, breakouts take longer to get in and out of than you might imagine.
Yeah.
But another thing that's sometimes underestimated is make sure you allow five or so minutes at the beginning just for people connecting and sorting out any issues they've got. Because otherwise you start automatically 10 minutes late because you have little issues to sort out. And finishing earlier is always an option. Yes.
Absolutely. No, but nobody objects to that. Like,
it's been a good thread, that, and I recommend watching the 45-second videos in each tweet.
Yes,
I haven't done that yet.
I've watched a couple of them, so yeah.
And there's the summary there. At the end as well.
And as we say, as usual, we'll have that as a link on the YouTube video after the show. So please go back to it if you wish to. Okay, moving on, we go to our next story from thescotsman.com. And this is a headline: Help to link companies to charities for community benefits. And this is where businesses and good causes are being invited to register for a new website aiming to encourage links between communities and local enterprises across Edinburgh, the Lothians, Fife, and Borders. So have I pronounced those correctly, Sweyn?
Yes, that's basically it's basically the southeast quarter of Scotland.
Great stuff. So this site will allow charities in the region to register and request for support in kind from local suppliers and public sector supply chains, or any business wishing to undertake good deeds locally, whether that's a small firm donating to a grassroots community group or a large firm wishing to organise volunteering days. And this site has been supported through funding from the £1.3 billion Edinburgh and South East Scotland City Region deal, which is a joint investment between the UK and Scottish governments. So as well as supporting the realisation of community benefits from many of the deal's major developments, this portal will also promote the wider value of community benefits among businesses and third sector organisations in the region generally. Community benefits are clauses which are now mandatory in the awarding of most public contracts. In other words, companies involved in projects where public money is being spent sign up to give something back to the community in return for the contract. Examples include businesses committing to apprenticeships, engagement with schools, and using local supply chains. So it's hoped that this new site can extend support to groups focusing on recreation, well-being, the environment, and social enterprises. So that sounds really good. I think there are I've heard of similar projects in other parts of the UK. In Kind, I think, is one. But yeah, it's good to see a local one as well, because I think people like to give, they to know that they are helping somebody they might actually come across in the course of their work as well.
It's good to have somewhere local that you can go, whether you're offering something or looking for something to be done for you. So it's good clearinghouse kind of idea. Simple idea, but a good one.
Very good. We look forward to hearing more about that. And if anybody involved with that project wants to come on and talk to us about it, we'd love to hear from them, especially if they're doing any technology related assets. We'd love to hear about that. And now we have another tweet from Tessa Davis, who's been busy on Twitter. She was the lady who just did the one on the Zoom tips.
Oh, I hadn't noticed it was the same person.
Yeah, so this is a powerful Twitter feature, which I was aware of, and my ex-journalism tutor, Paul Bradshaw, taught me about this. But it was good to see it on Twitter that other people could take advantage of. And this is the advanced search on Twitter. And Tessa says it will revolutionize the way you search for what to read. So she actually goes through line by line the kind of what you need to do to do the advanced search. And she says you hadn't heard of it before, but she uses a lot now. And she says the main reason why you would need to use this is because you can't always find the tweet that you're looking for. Because it's been posted, it's not now, it's been posted a while ago, experts you love and big accounts you follow. So she says, find the tweets from the particular person, type in the search bar, you want to see tweets about certain topics, combine the two to find to see the interactions. And she gives a kind of a line by line description with screenshots as well, so people can see clearly what the person what you're looking for, and then you can put the dates in as well, and keywords and dates, so it's it's much easier to find, and you can also exclude search terms as well, so it's quite targeted. Have you used this?
I use this all the time. I had used most of these. The one that was new to me was the way that you can find tweets that are popular. So you can find tweets that have had a minimum number of retweets, or a minimum number of favorites, or a minimum number of replies, and that's quite a good one. And the other thing was, again, more useful than you might imagine, is you can remember that a tweet that you were wanting to find had a link or an image or something attached to it. You can also do that. So that apart from the ones that are maybe more known, which you can put from : and then the Twitter name, and that'll find all the tweets from that person, or to : Twitter name, that'll find all the tweets that have been directed at that person. There's some nice, slightly more unusual keywords you can add in to your searches, and it's as she says, your Twitter account, if you just look at the top of your Twitter feed, it's just the 40 tweets that people you're following have tweeted most recently. So if you are trying to find something, it's quite a big task to search through. So some of these things that restrict or filter out what you're finding in your Twitter feed, it's very useful.
Yeah, that location one is good as well, to kind of find something locally. I mean, I think as the book says, we need to talk about Twitter at some stage, because it may be changing under new ownership, but for the time being, it's still a great resource. And so it gives it TLDR, that stands for too long didn't read. How you can search. So using the Twitter name, using keywords, using favorites, using retweets, using links and images, dates between certain dates, and locations. So there's a huge range of combinations there to find the exact thing that you're looking for. So good one, Tessa. Thanks for that. Okie dokie. So and we go on to our next story, which is about bullying and cyberbullying, and this is again from Twitter, by Hisham Ziauddin. And the headline we pulled out was "Bullying and Cyberbullying: Feeling Compelled to Defend Yourself" by Hisham Ziauddin. And this is a thread, where he talks about when bullies impugn your character. This, for many people, is the red line. I can't let this pass. I can't let them get away with this. But unfortunately, this is a common tactic employed by bullies. So there's a whole thread of 18 tweets where he goes through, how to handle this, or how to, the kind of things that happen, and the kind of responses that you might want to give. So have you had a look at this, Sweyn? What do you think about this one?
Yes, I mean, basically what the summary seems to be is that it's maybe not worthwhile defending yourself against cyberbullies, because if you do engage with them, you can make the situation worse. You can encourage the bully to get, to double down. You can, the bully can then recruit other people to take part in the bullying. And difficult though it may be, I think Hisham is suggesting that you don't need to dignify it with a response or to justify yourself necessarily, or even that it could be counterproductive if you do. I think that's the main takeaway.
I think what he's saying is that for the bully, the point is to try and keep the process going. So the more engagement there is, the more they feel that they're achieving their aim.
Exactly.
It's not about the truth or otherwise. It's power. It's a power play. So it acts. They further down in the list of tweets on the 16th one, he says, to quote my colleague Sadie Strong, "It's difficult because it activates part of us that had no voice in the past. But the difference is choosing not to speak rather than having silence forced upon you." So it's kind of like saying take the moral high ground, but it's like it's also saying, look, your energy is not to be used. It's not advising you to use it in that way. That it's it doesn't work. So maybe consider ignoring it and just switching off or muting whatever the person is trying to say to you. Okay, so we will try and do something more about cyberbullying. I think cybersecurity as well, because I think it's good to kind of come back to those security things. Maybe we'll go back to Simon Finch or somebody else who is happy to talk to us about that.
I think that the other important point that Hashim was making there was rather than responding and defending yourself directly, it can be more important to find sources of support outside the situation to make you feel able to cope with it, rather than trying to tackle it head on in a way that might encourage it to get worse.
Yeah, good point. Okie doke. Now we have a story from lifehacker.com called "Why You Should Buy the Dumbest TV You Can Find" by Jeff Summers. And this is dumb meaning, kind of the most low tech TV. And Jeff says that many smart TV makers are aggressively selling your viewing data and populating their user interfaces with advertising. Television manufacturers are typically not software developers, and there's a strong tendency to orphan their platforms almost as soon as they release them. That means they just have they feel no obligation to kind of to support you. They just let it out into the wild. Aside from the inconvenience of having outdated apps, this is also a huge security concern. Your smart TV is an internet-connected device, after all, loaded with your personal information and attached to your home's Wi-Fi or wired internet. Microsoft issues security updates for Windows on a weekly basis. So he says, how do you think your TV is doing after 2 years of zero software patches, which is often the case? He says that when you buy a smart TV, you're locked into that company's interface and platform, whether you like it or not. And those platforms tend to be poorly designed and frustrating to interact with. So this is all kind of a precursor to saying, think about buying a so-called dumb TV. It won't have the screen size resolution and features of a smart TV, but they are out there, and they might save you from kind of dross and sort of targeting and selling of your data. So he gives a list of tips if you've decided not to buy a smart TV. So looking at business displays, looking at outdoor TVs, and 4K monitors. So instead of buying a TV, hook your streaming device to a monitor, and use it that way. And that's what I do. I don't watch TV on a TV anymore. I just use my my computer and watch iPlayer and kind of other similar channels. What about yourself, Sweyn? What's your attitude to this?
This was something I hadn't thought of, but it makes an awful lot of sense. It's not just TVs that are now connected to the internet. Lots of different things are, and it's a big concern there's been numbers of stories about, for example, internet-based baby monitors that are being able to be hacked into and all that sort of stuff. So the things that this article is saying about the risks of poorly maintained internet-enabled software on a device who's not really focused on the connectivity side, it's very important. And as it also says, the lifetime of the device will be much longer probably than the amount of time that the manufacturer can be bothered to upgrade all the apps that they've written for this specific TV. So why not split off the apps that you want to use into something like Apple TV or the Roku or whatever device that's focused on the connectivity and is therefore maintained and maintained in a secure way, and just use a TV that is literally that's literally just taking the output from that device and displaying it on the screen. Don't let the TV worry about trying to connect to the internet and run an app for iPlayer or whatever. Keep the two things separate. Yeah, good idea.
Yeah, great. So again, if anybody has done this or wants to talk about what they've done, or wants to put this case for smart TVs, please do contact us. We'd love to hear from you, and we just want to share information that we found with people, and if someone has a contradictory argument, then we're happy to hear it and see what they have to say about it. Okay, so the next one was about digital support for a particular group of people, gypsies and travellers in Scotland. And this is a website called MECOP Digital Online. And I just thought, I saw it and I just thought, well, that's a great idea to target a particular group who are can be targeted for racism and other, oppression, so prejudice. So it's good to think about what they might need to use in the digital sphere. So this is a website to share tips and tricks for your device and to provide digital support and development for gypsies and travellers in Scotland, not exclusively, but that's who the support is offered for. So if you're a gypsy Roma traveller and you need to request help, you can do so using their contact page. They can only work on devices that have been given by them. So a bit like my project in Northfield, we do support other devices, but we do encourage people to borrow the laptops that we've got and then support them using those. So but back to the MECOP website, they have troubleshooting tips about their device, Wi-Fi connection, and how to use them. And they offer free courses and learning programs on these pages, and all their information is open source, and they reference the sources of this information. So they show you the different icons you can use to, if you have a logo with a hand pointer image as on screen, as Sweyn is showing on screen now, it's click on the logo to go to that site, and where you see a question mark and another two speech bubbles beside each other with a question mark and some dots, you can click to that to send your questions. And they also have audio files, which means that people who might not be able to see will be able to hear the page, to have it read to them. So they want to make the site as accessible as possible for those who can't read well and for those with dyslexia. So they're asking people to contact them if they have any issues with the pages. And the talking pages have been made possible with permission of Scottish Voices and Zero Proc, which are obviously two organizations that support people in Scotland. So is this one you'd come across before, Sweyn, or was it new to you?
No, that was new to me as well. Again, a very worthwhile initiative and very useful for its intended audience.
Yeah, and other people might be able to use that as a model for other groups that are targeted for other kinds of oppression. So we'd be interested to hear if anybody has developed specific support for specific groups. It's always good to hear, as we have done with the older people on stories we've heard of in previous programs. And the next one was another one from Tessa Davis.
So
was it the same one as we talked about before, Sweyn? Have we doubled up Zoom hacks? Yeah.
No, I think it's a different one. I think it is a different one. This one's
no, you're right, they are different. Yeah, they are different. The previous one was about online presentations, but this is just about Zoom. So so this is Tessa's saying on this one. Most of us think we know Zoom inside out, and she's bringing us some hacks that she's learned in her presentation career. So the first one is to say, if you want to share something from your iPhone, you can click certain buttons on your iPhone to share the screen using AirPlay and mirror your screen. So you can quickly show something from your iPhone onto your screen. And she has a little video showing, or a little GIF, I think. It is a video, but it's called a GIF, how to do that. So if you've got an iPhone and you want to use it with Zoom, then there's instructions for how to do that. The next one tip is to, if you want to turn off your mic and camera quickly, say if the doorbell rings and you need to duck out. So rather than fumbling with your mouse, there's some shortcuts that she says shows both Mac and Windows shortcuts. And these are the kind of things that some of us, like if we're cutting and pasting, we know Control C and Control V. Well, these are some more shortcuts that we can probably integrate into our shortcut memory to be able to use. So for camera and on Windows is Alt and V, and for microphone is Alt and A. So it's the kind of thing you'd quickly learn to use, Sweyn, do you think?
Yes, I use these all the time,
okay.
particularly at the beginning and end of this program when I'm trying to do several things at once.
Yeah,
it's very useful.
Very handy.
You don't have to actually find the place on the screen where the button is. You can just do it quickly.
Excellent. And number 3 on these tips is if you're sitting in a dingy space for your Zoom meeting, if the place is too dark, Zoom has an adjust for low light option, and this is in the video settings. You can adjust for low light, and you can manually adjust your low light settings. So that can be handy for people to boost up their what it looks like on screen. So we're happy to bring that one to people. And again, there's a little video to show you how to do that. Number 4, if you're trying to highlight one area of your screen rather than the whole of the screen, there's an annotate cursor option where you can spotlight your cursor, show an arrow, and use the vanishing pen. Now, I don't know, was this on particular devices, Sweyn, or can anybody have this one?
I think this works on most devices, you know, Apple and laptop at least. I think you might have more trouble on a phone or a tablet, but yes.
I'm not sure I know what a vanishing pen is, I think. So
I think
I might have looked that one up.
It's just what happens when you move it around.
Okay.
It kind of unhighlights the thing you're moving around through.
Okay. I think this is one I need to follow up later on, because we both use Zoom a lot, and I'd like to, you know, it's always good to share new things about it. The next tip is number 5, want to show slides but maintain the connection with the audience. So this is where you can share the screen but still be on screen yourself. So you click share screen, you click advanced, and then you click slides as virtual background. So you're somewhere else on the screen. You can be in front or beside, or you know, over to one side, and then have your slides on as well. And I think that always looks very professional to me. It looks like a kind of thing they do on TV, Sweyn.
Yes.
Yeah. So yes. I like that one. I'm going to use that one. Sometimes the next tip is about if you didn't catch what was said, you can add live captions and a transcript. And I think is this automatically? I think maybe your settings need to be done before you.
I think you need to
anyway.
I think you need to set it before you
do the call.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can have it that way. Copy API token and connect when you're in the call. Then so that's useful to have. And this
I think you need to have a service that does this for you.
Yeah.
But this is a way of connecting it to the Zoom call so that it works within the call.
Yeah. And Tessa says she uses Otter AI to do live notes of her calls. So you might want to link that up as well. It's a very handy tool to use. Number 7 in this list of tips is if you need to drown out the neighbors. Say, for example, there's building work going on in your street, can be distracted for everyone else in your meeting. So Zoom gives you an option to suppress background noise. And this is in the audio settings. You go to audio setting, you click suppress background noise, and you adjust to the level needed. So some really handy hacks there. I
think that's the default. I think the suppress background noise on is the default.
Right.
And one thing to remember about that is, if for any reason you're wanting to share music that's happening in the room around you, then it's very important to switch that feature off. Otherwise, Zoom spends all of its time trying to suppress the music you're trying to broadcast and listening for a voice. So it's perhaps more important to realize when that's needed to be off than it is to switch it on, because I think it's on by default most of the time.
Okay, yes, very good point. Good. Okie dokie. So sticking with Twitter as a source, we've got the Digital Poverty Alliance Community Hub as our next story, and this is a social network for the digital poverty space, full of like-minded people who want to make a difference. So they've been tweeting about this lately, and I think I've submitted the Dr. Tech Show as a resource, and other work that I've done as well. But it's great to see them bringing together, all the good things that are happening out there. I can highly recommend them as a source for blogs and guidance and sort of all sorts of good things going on in the digital poverty space. Yeah, definitely. And moving on again, we have a story by Neil Selwyn on digigen.eu titled "What Should Digital Literacy Look Like in an Age of Algorithms and AI?" So he says that whereas digital literacy efforts to date have focused on supporting young people to become better users of technology, the most significant digital technologies during the 2020s are likely not to be technology used by people per se. Instead, the most influential and insidious digital technologies over the next few years are likely to be technologies that are used on people. And he says, we're talking here about the rise of data-driven automated technologies, what is often referred to as automated decision-making, algorithmic and AI technologies. These are all systems and software that sit in the background of our everyday lives, monitoring, tracking our actions and movements, extracting data from our devices, and then using this information to make decisions. Algorithmic systems are already a common feature of young people's lives, dictating which targeted advertisement appears when a toddler watches a YouTube video, or perhaps whether a school leaver gets accepted to study at their preferred university. And he says that as such, this calls for rethinking what might have been previously talked about digital literacy as a form of algorithmic literacy. And he lists some components of what this might include. And so he says, for example, recognizing when data-driven automated systems are being used, having a basic understanding of how these data-driven automated systems works, what Tanya Butcher describes as an algorithmic imaginary, knowing how to work with algorithmic systems, for example, writing with a natural language processing tool so it helps rather than hinders your creativity, knowing how to work around algorithmic systems, for example, using obfuscation tactics to avoid data vigilance, data surveillance, I think they're bringing data and surveillance together. Yeah. And finally, recognizing when human input and outside is required. For example, knowing when to override an automated decision or push back against algorithmic bias and automated discrimination. As in, I mean, a lot of people, didn't they find that some automatic systems failed to recognize people of color or other facial, things that they weren't using enough data to allow the systems to know when to make good decisions. So yes, that'll be one that we'll see developing in the next while, I think. Sweyn, what do you think?
Yeah, it's just important to understand how these things are working in the background. It's just a new thing to, as I say, it's a new form of what you might think of as digital literacy.
Yeah.
If you don't understand that these things are happening, then you're not able to guard against the negative impacts that they can have.
That's right. I remember when I first started getting interested in data for good, I used to say that my emphasis was on data-driven decision making, but now I realize that actually just because you have data doesn't mean you have to do actions because of that you can be informed by the data, but you don't have to be guided solely by that there needs to be human element to decisions as well. Okie doke. We have another story now with the title "Your Face is Now a Weapon of War." This is another one we picked up from Twitter. So if we have that one on screen, have we? Yeah. And this is where someone called Stephanie Hare explores how Ukraine is using Clearview's AI facial recognition technology to identify Russians dead and alive, drawing on a database of billions of facial images that are scraped from the internet without anyone's consent. So not a very positive story. And the story, we opened it up in, we went to the link, didn't we? And we said that, you know, maybe this needs to be examined. The kind of the opening lines of the article says, "Who owns your face?" You might think that you do, but consider that Clearview AI, an American company that sells facial recognition technology, has amassed this database of 10 billion images since 2020 only. And by the end of the year, it plans to have scraped 100 billion facial images from the internet. It's difficult to assess the company's claims, but if we take Clearview AI at face value, it has enough data to identify about everyone on Earth, and you know, do what with them? It's you know, your face. It says it's making money for people you've never met and never sought your consent when they took your face print from your social media profiles and online photo albums. The data is being used by over 3,100 US law enforcement agencies, as well as the US's Postal Service. But in Ukraine, as we started with the article, it's being used as a weapon of war. The company has used its tools, has offered its tools free of charge to the Ukrainian government, which is using them to identify dead and living Russian soldiers and then contact their mothers. So that just sounds ominous, really. I haven't read I don't remember reading the whole of the article. It just sounded like something we needed to flag
very
up
new,
and
this has never happened before. And again, like so many other things, depending on who is doing it and how they're doing it and why they're doing it, you know, there could be good factors and bad factors as to how it's used. I think one of the points that the article makes later on is that if we imagined that it was the Russian side doing this, then we would probably feel a lot less, even less comfortable about the use of it. So it's just, again, another thing to be aware of. There are these large kind of data sets that are not necessarily regulated in any way by those with the data subjects' interests at heart, and for all sorts of different things that we don't really even see coming in advance. I mean,
it does reference the GDPR that we have in the European that kind of runs the European Union, and which I think the UK is still using as a guideline. And you know, there's something to be said about that. Canada apparently has identified Clearview AI as a tool of mass surveillance and declared it illegal. And British and Australian data regulators fined them and ordered them to delete their citizen data. And Italy has also had some dealings with them, and Sweden and France and Australia and Greece. So you know, it's not getting traction in the European Union. So that's Europe generally. So that's good to hear. So yeah, one we might come back to if we hear more about that one. Okay, we're coming towards the end of the show. We have couple of more stories I think we'll try and get in. This is next one is about the time limitations of the Schengen area, as third-party nationals, i.e. UK citizens, are limited to 90 days in 180. And this is again from Twitter, where says that once UK citizen has been within the Schengen area for 90 days, they have to return to the UK for another 90 days in order to be able to go back to some of the Schengen area locations. So and you have to keep track of those days, because you could find yourself in trouble if you want to travel more, and as friends of mine do. So unless you've got a passport that's not a UK passport, a European Union passport, this could be an issue for
this doesn't apply to Ireland either, because between the UK and Ireland, because that's a separate.
That's covered by the common travel area.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just separate from this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just do the last one, which is one that made me laugh actually, but also serious. And the headline is "Cough at your phone to see if you have COVID." And this is one we spotted, and we have the story from the Huffington Post. which says the several coughs into a phone are all that's needed to diagnose COVID-19 using a breakthrough in artificial intelligence developed by Australian scientists. And in what promises to vastly reduce reliance on swab tests, the smartphone app records the sound of coughing and instantly tells if coronavirus is the cause. The creators say it's more than 90% accurate. Well, there you go. What do you think, Sweyn?
Well, I could possibly have used this a couple of weeks ago, and I unfortunately contracted the dreaded virus after avoiding it for 2 years. If it works, it's great. Yes.
Yeah.
Anything that makes testing and monitoring easier and less kind of fiddly, it's got to be a good thing. Yeah. Okay.
So again, if somebody has used this and wants to come and talk about it, we'd love to hear from you. It is an interesting use of technology, and yeah, it's not it wasn't the 1st of April thing. So
no, we checked that. Yes.
Yeah. And that brings us to the end of the show for this week. Thanks to everybody for listening and joining us, and we hope you have a great week. Take care. Bye.